Hi there, I've been trying to go live for the last half an hour. I think there's something wrong with Facebook today, so I hope I don't get cut off. Today, I'm going to be speaking with you about eco-anxiety. I'm just going to, I don't know if that was plugged in very well, so I hope you've heard me from the beginning. I'm going to be talking today about eco-anxiety, how to tackle it, and 5 tips that you can use to focus your efforts. I shared just the other day an article that was in, I think it was a BBC article, about the number of women who are currently suffering from eco-anxiety, and that is people who, I've met a lot of women lately, a lot of mums especially, who are really worried about the future for their children, and they've read their IPCC report on the International Governmental Scientist report on climate change, and the potential for catastrophic climate change, which the scientists are warning us about. And so as a result, a lot of these mums are really frightened for the future and are really desperately trying to do everything they can, are feeling really kind of beating themselves up about you know, all the like non-eco things that they do, even though they do a lot. And I can really relate to this because, you know, I'm kind of there at this as well. I'm worried about the future of the planet and how climate change is going to affect us all and my child. And I'm really trying my best to do what I can to reduce my impact on the earth. And, you know, if this is you, I'd love to hear from you. If you comment below, let me know, you know, what are you most worried about? And what are you trying to do to lessen your impact? So let me start off, before I get into the tips, let me start off by introducing myself. I am an architect and I specialise in working with homeowners, particularly eco-conscious homeowners who are looking to improve their homes and help them, make them actually support a better lifestyle. So I am also an eco-refurbisher listed on the Green Register, and I am an RIBA conservation registered accredited registrant. So what I wanted to do is give you some tips for how you could focus your efforts and perhaps stop beating yourself up about your failure to do all of the eco things. And, you know, really, if everybody does a little bit, then we're all going to be so much better. And you can do so much without really negatively affecting your quality of life. And really, I think you can actually do a lot that will positively affect your quality of life. And that's really what I'm about. I want everybody to have a happier life, a more comfortable life, a life that is filled with ease and enjoyment, and as well as feeling good about your impact on the planet. And, you know, even for those people who don't believe that there is such a thing as climate change, I've met and debated this with some people who don't believe that climate change is a thing. Even there, you know, maybe you might be worried about pollution, plastic pollution in the oceans, and even if there is nothing going to happen, surely living a life where we are using the Earth's resources responsibly and managing those in a really positive way is going to really benefit everybody in the long term. So why not? Why not do it? Do what you can. And so if you're really struggling with anxiety about this, just remember that every little thing that you do is helping, and chances are you're probably doing more than the average person. So don't beat yourself up. You know, as a mum, it's really, really hard to find the time, the energy, and maybe not necessarily have all the resources to help you to make some of the eco changes. You know, you can make eco changes that really are very expensive, but it's not necessary to spend a lot. Even though you can spend a lot more and take a greener choice, you can also live more sustainably without spending a lot more. So there are ways to achieve a lighter living approach without, regardless of your budget, whether that's a great budget or a small budget. So I'd love it if you could press the heart button and like this video if you know to show appreciation for all those eco-conscious mums out there who really are trying their best, trying hard to do what they can to live lightly, and maybe not feeling that great about, that they're using disposable nappies rather than cloth nappies, or whatever it might be. So here are 5 tips that you can take on board to focus your effort. So where you've got, you might not have the time and the energy to do everything, but you could do some of these things to focus your effort in places where they're going to be most effective and are going to have a bigger impact. So the first thing is in relation to money. Now we all know that money makes the world go round, and money is what kind of makes a lot of things happen. And most of us have got a current account, perhaps a savings account, perhaps a pension. So all of these funding mechanisms, all these banking solutions, personal banking solutions that we have, depending on where you bank, that can be having an impact on funding for very unethical and fossil fuel rich activities. So this would be the first thing that you can change, is to write a letter to your bank and tell them that you don't want your money to be going to benefit, for example, fossil fuel or whatever it is that you're particularly worried about. But I would say fossil fuel is really the thing that is having the biggest climatic impact. So that's probably where, if you want to, focus your efforts, write a letter to your bank explaining that you don't want them to be funding fossil fuel. Now, the 5 biggest banks in the UK are some of the biggest funders of fossil fuels. So the more that they get letters from their own customers saying that they don't want them to be funding fossil fuels, the more likely they are to change their funding practices. And then what you can do, chances are they're not going to change immediately. So then what you can do is change your account over to a more ethical bank. So the big 5 banks that you particularly, are particularly big funders of fossil fuel are Lloyds, Barclays, HSB, RBS/NatWest, and Santander. These are the biggest funding banks of fossil fuels. So if you bank with them, if you have a current account with them, if you have a savings account with them, then changing over, moving your account, switching provider is going to have an impact. And the more of us that do this, the bigger an impact that will have on the banks. But they won't get the message if you don't also write them a letter and say the reason you're changing is because they are funding fossil fuels. So that is a really key thing to do. Do that before you switch, and then switch. And the banks that you can switch to, which are more ethical, the only real big bank, real bank in the UK that is ethical and doesn't fund fossil fuels is the Co-op, and they have an online version called Smile. But there are also alternatives such as, I don't know how you pronounce this, but Triodos, and there's another bank called the Charity Bank. You could also look at local credit unions and building, what are they called? I can't remember. There's another type, not credit unions, but there's another sort. Lost the name of it. Something to do with buildings. Because they tend to be more involved in mortgages and not so much into sort of financing big financial deals. So I'll put a link below in the comments, because there is a template out there that you can use to write off to your bank and let them know the reason that you're planning to switch. And this is, once you've made that switch, yes, it's a little bit of administrative work, but doing the switch, the bank that you're switching to, say it's the Co-op, they will automatically transfer over all of your direct debits and everything like that. So you don't necessarily, it's not going to be such a big deal, but long term, and if more people do that, then that is going to have a massive influential impact, because as consumers, you have a lot of power. Your money speaks, and where you choose to place your money has an impact. And even more so if you're looking at a savings account. So if you've got savings and you're keeping money in the bank for more substantial sums of money, moving that out is going to have even bigger impact than if it's current account. So what do you think? Is this something that you think you might do? Let me know in the comments below if this seems like an interesting choice to you. The second tip is to choose to walk and cycle as much as you can. Now, I know as parents, ferrying around children to swimming lessons and what have you, it's not always easy to completely live without a car. But the more that you can reduce your reliance on a car, the better. It's going to be better for your children as well if you can get them out walking and cycling. It's good for them to get active, and with any luck, you'll have a better night's sleep as well. They're going to be sleeping up better for you. If you're actually thinking about moving home, then the location of your home it's a really important factor in how sustainable the your transport options are. And really, if you can choose a home that has got really good local facilities that you can easily walk or cycle to, or has really good public transport like trams and things, then you're going to find it a lot easier to select a more environmentally sustainable, lower impact form of transport. If you're living out in the middle of the countryside, chances are you are going to be relying on a car. And in that case, then, where a car is essential or maybe your only option, then try where you can to car share and minimize trips by combining tasks. So say you have to go drop something off in one place, do a supermarket shop, whatever, try to combine your journeys so that you're minimizing the amount of traveling around that you're doing. So that that will help with reducing the amount of fuel that you use. If you can, try to switch to a greener car, maybe a hybrid or an electric car. Or if you can't do that, then learn how to drive in a more eco manner. So don't accelerate quickly when you start off. Anticipate the potential that you might be stopping soon, and take your foot off the accelerator and allow the engine to slow down gradually itself, rather than speeding up to a traffic light and then slamming the brake on last minute. All these different things can really help you reduce the amount of energy that you are using up when you're driving, and that will also its benefit. Okay, it might not be as great as if you can only walk and cycle everywhere, but the reality is lots of people do rely on cars, and they're not going to go away anytime soon, or not until we run out of petrol completely. So let me know in the comments below, are you worried about the future and climate change and how that might impact on us and on your children? And let us know, what are you doing to reduce your impact? It would be great if you could share what you're doing, and maybe that will inspire others to help them to make similar changes. So my third tip is to cultivate a capsule wardrobe. Now, I really like the whole minimalist approach to life. I'm not a very good minimalist. I really struggle with having a lot of stuff in my house, and I'm gradually decluttering, feel like I'm permanently decluttering. But when it comes to wardrobe, the fashion industry is massively damaging to the planet. The amount of pesticides that go into growing cotton, the amount of water that it uses, the pollution caused by dyeing, the chemicals from dyes that go into the water, and all the really unethical sort of the working conditions and the payment, the treatment of people who make the clothes and children, that go into making clothes. It's really, it's not a great industry to be supporting, particularly fast fashion industry. So if you can reduce the amount of clothes that you need and reduce the amount of clothes that you buy, you're going to vastly impact on, you're going to have a much lower impact through your wardrobe. So the benefit, and there's so many benefits to you as well by having a capsule wardrobe. I have got a capsule wardrobe myself, and when I was pregnant, I didn't buy loads and loads of maternity clothes, and so that was the point at which I started to have a capsule wardrobe. And then after having baby, it took me quite a long time to get out of all those. In fact, still wear some of those maternity clothes, but it's taken me a long time to really reduce and get out of those. I was breastfeeding for a long time, and it's, that I actually selectively bought maternity clothes that I knew I could wear for a long time afterwards. They didn't really look maternity, and I knew that I could wear them for ages, that I could wear them while I was breastfeeding. So they actually got a long period of use out of them. And then I kept a lot of my pre-maternity clothes and have been sort of just selected out of those and gradually whittled down my wardrobe. So I've got a wardrobe that really works much better. I can go into that if anybody's interested. I can clarify how I've gone about putting together a capsule wardrobe, but I found it so helpful. It's much quicker and easier to pick out an outfit in the morning. It's not like I'm pulling loads of clothes out. Everything in my wardrobe fits me, pretty much all goes together because all very similar sort of colour schemes. And just opening the door to my wardrobe, it looks better. I'm more happy and excited to see what's in there rather than thinking, oh, none of this is really any good. And it's much better quality because I've taken out a lot of the pieces that I don't really like. And whenever I've been buying new things, or really I don't really buy a lot that's actually brand new, mostly brand new, I just stick to is underwear, and everything else I tend to buy secondhand. But I'm buying much better quality, so that is also improving the clothes that I've got. So when it comes to wardrobes, you could got the more budget-friendly option, which is to buy secondhand, which is what I tend to do. It's much less impactful to buy secondhand. And you can actually, if you're really into designer fashion, you can buy designer clothes secondhand. It costs you a fraction of what they were brand new. And so many clothes that you get secondhand, especially even in charity shops, they still have the tags on. So whoever's bought them has bought them and never even worn them and then just donated them. So there's, it's not really slumming it to do that. There are some really, I know I've chatted with friends who really hate buying secondhand, especially looking through charity shops, because they just see a big jumbled mess and they can't stand the thought of filtering through it. And there are some really good techniques to be able to find the right pieces. But for example, actually this that I'm wearing is organic cotton, sea salt tunic. It's beautiful. This was from a charity shop. This jumper is also from a charity shop. I have a beautiful cashmere cardigan in my favourite colour, turquoise, and I love it. It's absolutely gorgeous. That also was from a charity shop. So there's so many really good quality pieces that you can get. It's not a bad option at all. And if you don't like the idea at all of shopping from charity shops, then what you can do is buy from small local businesses where they're paying a living wage to their employees, or perhaps it's one person, one lady who makes and sews clothes for children, and often those sort of that clothing tends to be more expensive. It is more towards the luxury market, and you can also go down the bespoke route. If you find yourself a really good tailor, a dressmaker, seamstress, then you can design your own clothes along with them and get them to make things that really fit you. It doesn't have to be a really budget version. It's just that it is possible to have a really good quality capsule wardrobe on a budget, but equally there are ways to be more ethical in the way that you shop, where it's, you are spending quite a lot of money, and it's, you don't need to feel like it's a negative status to be buying stuff that's more eco, because actually it's going to cost you a lot more if you want to go down the new route, sort of the organic cotton route, and buying really more natural materials that have had less impact on the environment. So one tip I would give if you're thinking about reducing your wardrobe, this is something that I did and it really, really helped. And that was, I picked out 10 items of clothes and made myself several outfits from those items and wore, and that was all I was allowed to pick from for like 1 to 2 weeks. And what I found at the end of that time was that I would gravitate towards a few outfits and a few items, and I'd wear those over and over, and then there were always 1 or 2 things that I hadn't worn at all. I really just didn't want to wear them. And the fact that out of such a limited amount of clothes, there were some that I wasn't choosing to wear, just highlighted that those pieces were not things that I needed to have in my wardrobe, and those were then things I donated or took to a clothes swap party, which is another way of refreshing a wardrobe. So this is one step that you can take to get yourself into cultivate your capsule wardrobe. So there's quite a lot of tips here, quite a lot of information within each tip. So I hope this isn't overwhelming. I mean, I know that, the whole point of this is to help people who are feeling eco anxiety, and there is a lot that you can be doing, and it does feel so overwhelming. But I would say just pick one of these things, focus on that, and don't try to do too much and worry about all the different things that you're not doing. Focus on the things that you are doing. So tip number 4 is to write to the companies who produce products or deliver services that you really often use and you really enjoy, but you can see that there are ways that they could improve those to make them more sustainable. So for example, perhaps they could reduce plastic packaging, or perhaps they're really wasteful of heating, for example, a chain store or a restaurant that heats outside space. And that might be unnecessary, especially if there's actually nobody at tables, so it's not on a sensor that senses when people are there, or it's not just turned on when customers want it on, but it's actually on just all the time from during the opening period, even when there's nobody there. Or it could be that they include things like palm oil or other ingredients that are known to be harmful, or perhaps some materials like exotic hardwoods or something that could come from older forests and are not really sustainable choices. So your consumer pressure can make companies change, and in reality, as an individual, you can make these small changes, and some of the anxiety comes from this feeling that I'm making these small changes, but it's not really having much of an impact. And a lot of people even don't make those changes because they think, well, what's the point of me not doing this, or walking more when there's there's so many flights, the aeroplane's going to go anyway. But the fact is that as a consumer, you do have a lot of power, and sending letters to companies that you use a lot and you really enjoy, and telling them that you love the product and you'd really appreciate it if they could reduce the plastic packaging, or stop incorporating palm oil, or whatever it is. Doing this is going to have more of an effect because it starts to create more systematic change, and that's the kind of change where if a product is then made more sustainable and it's a product that lots of people like, lots of people use, then it's not just you is going to be benefiting and being able to live a lower impact life. It's automatically going to filter down so that everybody who uses that product or service is also going to be having less impact. So it's much greater than you to write these letters. And if you can, also you could use your letter as a template and email it around to friends of yours and ask them if they would also send an email to the company, give them the right, the customer service email, or whatever email is appropriate for that company, and ask them to pass that around to their friends, asking them to do the same. And that will have a snowball effect. The more messages the companies receive from their consumers that asking them to make a change, the more likely they are to make the change. And another way is to create a petition. You can also do that, and there's relatively simple ways to do that online. But this is a really good way of, you just need to write an email, 2 emails, 1 email to the company and another email to your friends, and that is it. That's like half an hour or less time to do that, and that could have a huge impact. So I'd really encourage you to do that kind of thing. I mean, does this sound doable to you? Do you think these tips sound like, within the limitations of the time and the energy that you have as a mum, would you be able to fit any of these in, writing a letter, changing your bank account, decluttering your wardrobe to make it more of a capsule wardrobe? If this is helpful to you, please give me a thumbs up, click the like button, and let me know in the comments below. So the 5th thing is to upgrade your home. Now, obviously, as an architect, this is where I would specialise, and I know more about this area. But if you can upgrade your home to make it more energy efficient, then this is one of the ways that you can have a massive impact, because our homes are, huge users of fossil fuels for heating, for space heating, and also for hot water heating and so on, and electricity. So there are lots of simple things that you can do, and a lot of them you can do yourself, DIY. So these are things that you can really start to incorporate, and not only will it make your home more comfortable, so it'll feel better to be in, it will also reduce your impact, and that will also have an impact on the cost of your heating bills and so on. There are lots of things you can do to your home that does have a big upfront cost, but that's not what I'm talking about here. I'm going to give you some suggestions of things that you can do that are not going to have a massive upfront cost, but can have quite a big effect. So first is to draft proof your doors and your windows. So if you can reduce the amount of air flowing around those, I'm not talking about the trickle vents, don't block up things like trickle vents, but around the edges of opening windows, especially if you've got older windows, sash windows or old casement windows, adding draft proofing to those will really help. Fill in cracks in the plasterwork. So, for the sake of a couple of tubes of filler, you can fill in the cracks. Especially focus on places like around windowsills, underneath the windowsill, all around the frame of your window and the wall. You'll find there's a lot of cracking there, and that cracking, even though it looks small, can actually let a lot of air flow move in and out of your home, and you can lose a lot of heat from that. And places like around your skirting boards as well, that's another really key place you'll feel that draft going across your feet, and that will make you feel more uncomfortable. So if you can reduce those drafts, that's a really good approach. Add insulation wherever you can, so to the roof, the walls, the ground floor, that's all the external envelope. So if you've got your house basic house with a pitched roof, you want to be able to there to be a complete coverage of insulation for maximum heat or energy efficiency. Now, I know that's not always possible, especially in older buildings, but adding insulation where you can in the best way that you can is going to help. You need to be careful with adding insulation. I'm not going to go into that here, but do make sure that you get it done properly. Replace your glazing with double glazed or triple glazed windows, or add secondary glazing, or add window treatments to improve the thermal qualities of your windows. And when it starts to get cold or becomes night, make sure you close down all of those blinds and curtains and things. Replace old boilers with more efficient condensing modern versions. That is going to really reduce the amount of energy that you use to heat your space. And replace white goods with A-rated versions, but I would say only do this when they break down and they're not going to repairable, they don't work anymore. And you're going to have to replace them anyway. When you do replace them A-rated. And the reason I say don't just go around and replace all the ones that you've got, even if they're working. I mean, unless you're going to donate them somewhere, you could donate them to somebody who doesn't have anything. Or there's lots of charities that take on white goods and renovate them. So you could do that, but if you're going to if they're perfectly good and usable, I would say carry on using them until they die out, because the thing about all these sort of bits of equipment is that the amount of energy that's gone into making them and all the resources in them, it's better to use things until it breaks, really. Apart from, I would say that the boilers, getting a really efficient boiler compared to a really inefficient boiler will make a massive difference, the amount of energy that uses up heating your home. So I think on balance it's probably better to swap out your boiler even if it's not broken. Change taps and showers for rated versions, so they're like more eco versions, and what the benefit to you is that is going to use less water, but it can still feel just as powerful, so you don't lose the effects of your power shower, but it's using less water, and because there's less water flowing through it, there's less water that's needed to be heated, and so you're also reducing, it's better to use less water because water, it's energy intensive to provide you with that clean filtered water, but it's also energy intensive to heat it to the temperature that you want to shower in or whatever. So if you can use an aerated tap or an aerated shower head, that is also going to reduce your impact. And then finally, last thing is to add or upgrade your heating controls. So the more control you have over your heating and where it heats, the less fuel you're going to be using. So the less of the space that you heat to a higher temperature as you can, the better. So if you can say, if you're not using your first floor, for example, during the day, but you are using your ground floor, what you can do is you can make it so that there are two different zones. Only your ground floor rooms are heated and your first floor is not heated. And that is, concentrating your warmth where you need it, when you need it. Those are all my tips for today. I'd love it if you could share below what it is that you're doing to lessen your impact on the environment, so that other people can be inspired by what you're doing. I really hope this has helped and not been overwhelming. There are lots of choices, and what I would say is, if it feels overwhelming, just pick one thing, do that. And these 5 things are really the 5 areas where you're going to have the most positive impact. So the amount of fuel and energy that goes into heating your home, the amount of fuel and energy that goes into transporting you around, the impact that the clothing industry has on the environment, the financial impact you can have through your banking choices, and what's the other one? Okay, the consumer pressure that you can leverage. Those are the 5 different ways that really going to have some of the biggest impacts that you can have. And so you know, if you're having to use something like disposable nappies, for example, if you have to use disposable nappies rather than cloth nappies, don't beat yourself up about it. But if you can write that letter to your bank and change your bank account to a more ethical bank, then that's something that you can do that's, you know, relatively quick, relatively low amount of time, but it's going to have a much broader, bigger impact than using a few disposable nappies will. And so maybe you don't agree with me on this. If you don't agree with me, let me know below. I love a good debate. I'd love to hear your opinion, and you know, a different point of view is really always interesting to see. I hope this has been helpful, and I look forward to speaking to you next week. Bye for now. my phone is still broken and I still can't get it to press the finish button. Let's see. Oh, come on.